The FACE Act is to protect churches and any expression on the abortion issue. However, the Biden Justice Department is conducting SWAT raids and prosecuting peaceful pro-life protests as felonies instead of misdemeanors. Meanwhile, over 900 overt acts of pro-abortion violence have seen a handful of prosecutions. Undercover investigator Sandra Merritt exposed abortion specimen marketing in First Amendment-style undercover reporting. Now she is fighting for her life, prosecuted by California and sued by Planned Parenthood under RICO statutes. Liberty Counsel attorneys are seeking dismissal of criminal charges in California's First Court of Appeals, citing First Amendment protections. The Ninth Federal Circuit has recently ruled against Oregon efforts to block similar First Amendment-style investigations. This is Life News Radio. News at Life News Radio should make you think, and often it should make you think about calling your elected officials in Washington, D.C. So remember this phone number, 202-224-3121. Let your senators, your representatives, hear from you. 202-224-3121. 202-224-3121. The National Right to Life Committee, which predates Roe in its opposition to abortion, released its annual State of Abortion report Tuesday. It shows 89,000 fewer abortions since the end of Roe. The NRLC annual report also shows abortion advocates' claims that any resurrection of the Equal Rights Amendment could have sweeping impact on abortion law, something once denied by abortion advocates. For pro-life headlines delivered to your email address daily, sign up at lifenews.com. This has been Life News Radio.
Obedience is the second temptation of the devil for Jesus in the wilderness. The evil one showed him all the kingdoms of the world in a single instant. Then he said to Jesus, I shall give to you all this power and their glory, for it has been handed over to me, and I may give it to whomever I wish. All this will be yours if you worship me. But Jesus again quotes from Deuteronomy and says, You shall worship the Lord your God, and him alone shall you serve. Unlike the Israelites who gave in to the false worship of the golden calf when they grew impatient of Moses up on Mount Sinai, Jesus stays firm and loyal to the first commandment of the law, to not worship false gods or idols, and to remain obedient to God his Father alone. Let us reflect on any false gods, idols, or priorities in our lives during this holy season of Lent. This is Matt Maloney from knowthefaith.net.
Sometimes we might be put in very difficult circumstances. Sometimes the circumstances might seem to be very conducive to holiness, but that really is a secondary question, what the circumstances are. It really depends on what our attitude is and what we want to do, again, in those circumstances, whether we want to see God's providence in those circumstances. How easily we make that excuse that if we were in different circumstances, I would practice virtue. If maybe I wasn't surrounded by so many annoying people, then I would be a patient person, but there's just too many difficult people in my life that make it impossible for me. If I didn't have so many distractions in prayer, then I would be a man of great prayer, but there's just too many of them in my mind. I can't. If the circumstances were different, if I lived in a different time, in a different place, if the people in my life were different, then I would be different. When we make these excuses, we become complacent. It's not the circumstances we're in, but what we do in them that determines whether we reach holiness or not.
That's Sermons for Everyday Living from 6 to 7 a.m. Eastern on the Station of the Cross.
Hi, Joe McLean here, host of A Catholic Take, heard on the Station of the Cross each weekday morning at 7 a.m. Eastern. A bold synthesis of information and inspiration, keeping you up to date on the news and issues that you may have missed from a courageous Catholic perspective. That's A Catholic Take, weekday morning, 7 a.m. right here on the Station of the Cross and the free iCatholic Radio mobile app. Download it today. God love you.
This is Joe McLean, and you're listening to the Station of the Cross, proclaiming the fullness of the truth with clarity and charity.
Heard around the world on your Android and Apple mobile devices.
Go into the world and tell every man that you meet, there is a man on the cross.
A Catholic Take. What you need to know right now. A bold synthesis of inspiration and information. Keeping you up to date on the news and issues from a courageous Catholic perspective.
A Catholic Take with Joe McLean starts now.
Praise be to Jesus Christ. Welcome back to A Catholic Take, a bold synthesis of information and inspiration. I'm your host, Joe McLean, and it is great to be on with you. Praise be to God. It is Friday. You have survived the week. Congratulations. Just imagine the honey-do list you get to work on tomorrow. Get up early, get after it. You're going to feel so productive. It's amazing. Nobody's ever going to accuse you of being a Gen Zer. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Hey, Catholic cancel culture. It's a virus to the body of Christ, and we've seen it quite a bit. Bishops being canceled, priests being canceled, organizations being canceled. In fact, we're going to have that conversation today. Two conversations, in fact. Dr. Anthony Stine from Return to Tradition is back on the program at 14 past. We're going to talk about a canceled bishop out of Argentina who's been sounding the alarm. And he got canceled very early on, back when Francis was still in Argentina, in fact. So we'll talk about that. And then Dan Sevigny is on from Sanctus Ranch in Pine Creek, Texas. You might remember, I think it's about a month ago now, the Archbishop in San Antonio issued a letter basically just saying this place is persona non grata. Don't go there. Don't even put a foot on the property. Like bad things are happening. Well, we're going to find out what his response is to that. Dan Sevigny joins us at 30 past the hour to talk about all of that. I guess the good news is the church of meet them where they're at and don't worry about anything else is working out. I saw a new report this morning says the number of practicing Catholics in Italy has plummeted after the COVID-19 lockdowns to an all-time low. The Italian National Institute of Statistics found that only 19% of Italians were practicing Catholics in 2022 compared to 36% in the previous 10 years. That's not a good sign, is it? Maybe, just maybe, we need to become more zealous for the faith, like our saint of the day, which, by the way, we need to get to. So let's pray. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Amen. Remember, O most gracious Virgin Mary, that never was it known that anyone who fled to thy protection, implored thy help, or sought thine intercession was left unaided. Inspired by this confidence, I fly unto thee, O Virgin of Virgins, my mother. To thee do I come, before thee I stand, sinful and sorrowful. O Mother of the Word incarnate, despise not my petitions, but in thy mercy hear and answer me. Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, and now your saint of the day.
Saint Peter Damian, pray for us. Peter was born to an impoverished noble family in Ravenna, Italy, in the early 11th century. Orphaned at a young age, he was raised by an abusive older brother and forced to work as a swineherd. Eventually, another brother, a priest named Damian, noticed Peter's piety and intellect and took over caring for the boy and ensured he was educated. It was likely to honor this brother that Peter took the surname Damian. Peter was a brilliant student and became a renowned teacher by the age of 25, but he grew weary of worldly distractions and temptations and soon retired to live as a Benedictine hermit. After recovering from health issues caused by his more extreme mortifications, Peter returned to lecturing and eventually became prior of his original hermitage. He oversaw the founding of several other houses, and many saints were formed under his direction. Among many other devotions and penances, Peter encouraged the use of the little office of the Blessed Virgin Mary and the practice of flagellation. Though he always returned to his beloved solitude in the hermitage, Peter served and advised many popes and 2 Holy Roman emperors, and was made cardinal by Pope Stephen IX. Peter's ability as a writer and devotion to reform were exemplified by his famous Book of Gomorrah, which fiercely condemned the degenerate sins of many clergy of his day. Peter died, fittingly, on the Feast of St. Peter's Chair, February 22nd, in 1072 or 1073, and was named a Doctor of the Church in 1828. He is honored on February 21st in the modern calendar. For more about this day and others in the Church's calendar, visit thestationofthecross.com/saints-and-seasons. St. Peter Damian, pray for us.
And now your headline news. Breitbart reports AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile customers hit by cell network outages throughout the country. A massive AT&T network outage left many thousands of customers across the U.S. without cell service or internet access yesterday.
Lesser outages in the Verizon and T-Mobile cell networks have also been widely reported. The outages left hundreds of thousands of people unable to make calls, access the internet, or reach 911 services. I mean, they had to pick up books and read again. Can you imagine? Travesty of it all. The Hill reports Justice Department names first artificial intelligence officer. The DOJ named Jonathan Mayer, a Princeton University assistant professor who focuses on national security, consumer privacy, and criminal procedures, to the role of chief AI officer. He will serve in the DOJ's Office of Legal Policy. The DOJ has already used AI to track down where some illegal drugs are coming from and has utilized the technology during its investigation into the January 6th Capitol incident. Of course he has. Makes total sense, doesn't it? Hey, Catholic Vote is reporting liberal states plot abortion pill push. The New York Times released 2 articles Thursday highlighting efforts in 6 blue states to promote chemical abortion in pro-life states through shield laws. According to Pam Belluck, these laws promise to protect doctors, nurse practitioners, and midwives licensed in those states who prescribe and send abortion pills to patients in the nearly 24 states that have enacted pro-life laws. Let's pray for the pro-life war will eventually come to a victory, because we're only halfway there. And those are your headline news. Hey, the gospel today, I'm taking the option on the gospel today. I'm calling an audible here. John 15, verses 18 through 23. And I added the last 2 verses because they left them out. I threw them in. So I'm taking total option here. Anyway, Jesus said to his disciples, "If the world hates you, know ye that it hath hated me before you. If you had been of the world would love its own. But because you are not of the world, but I have chosen you out of the world, therefore the world hateth you. Remember my word that I said to you. The servant is not greater than his master. If they have persecuted me, they will also persecute you. If they have kept my word, they will keep yours also. But all these things they will do to you for my name's sake, because they know not him that sent me. If I had not come and spoken to them, they would not have sin. But now they have no excuse for their sin. He that hateth me hateth my Father also." The gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. I really felt like the option was fitting today. You know, that's the beauty of, the Novus Ordo, is they give you just tremendous amounts of options to choose from. It's pick and choose time. Anyway, Father McKeevely says he consoles them with their further reflection that this hatred on their part of the world should be a source of joy and honor to them, since it is a testimony that in their lives they conform not to the corrupt ways and maxims of the world. This was written back in the 19th century. Father McKeevely, his commentary is not well known, but I always read from it because I think it's fantastic and you should know about it. And does that sound about right to you? I mean, think about this for a second. Are we, as a body of Christ, are we embracing the world and trying to look more like the world, befriend the world, or are we in total contradiction to the world in order to save it from itself? Because somebody's got to be an adult in the room. You know what I'm saying? Father McKeevely goes on to say, "But because you are not of the world, far from embracing and acting on the leading maxims of the world vis-a-vis the concupiscence of the flesh, the concupiscence of the eyes, and the pride of life, far from loving riches, honor, and forbidden pleasures, you show the contrary." He goes on, "But I have chosen you out of the world, calling you to my faith and apostleship, segregating you from the world, giving you grace and strength to trample underfoot all that the world loves, and to value only the never-ending goods of the world to come. My spirit, my teaching are opposed to the world. Therefore the world hateth you, because you are opposed to their works." I want you to let that sink in for a moment. Just ruminate on that. Can you think of any examples, say, more recently, within the last few months of members of the body of Christ, even clergy, dare I say clergy, who might be looking like they're embracing the world in a friendly way, in a way that doesn't seem very contrary or contradictory or contrasted, but in a way that seems that they just want to be loved by the world. They want to be accepted. They want to be buddies, besties. Hey, the great commentary of Cornelius a Lapide had a lot to say as well of unbelief and hatred, in that they culminate and are hostile to my doctrine and life. Observe, the scribes and Pharisees before Christ came had true faith, not only in God, but also in Christ as about to come. But when he did come, they would not acknowledge him, because they saw him poor and lowly, and because he reproved their vices. Wherefore they then became unbelievers and lost the faith by their obstinacy. For Jesus abundantly proved to them that he was the Christ. Wherefore they were without excuse, because they believed him not. I mean, just think about it. They have no king but Caesar. Wow. Let the blood be upon their head and upon their children. Time is ticking. The clock is running, and soon will run out. And this great age of mercy that we live in today will come to an end. The time of justice will be at hand. And the judge will sit on his throne, and he will judge you, and he will judge me, and he will not let me get away with one utterance that came out of my mouth, one sin that I've hidden deep dark within. It'll all be brought to light, and I will have to give an account. And so will you. So will our country and all the nations of the world. Let there be no mistake, millstones are being fashioned right now, and hell is real, and people go there for all eternity. So repent and believe in the gospel while you have yet time. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Hello, this is Steve Gleason with your 1-minute tool for Catholic evangelism. Here's the question for your non-Catholic friend. Have you ever replaced pronouns in the Bible such as who, whom, whosoever, ye, you, etc., and replaced those words with your name, and therefore you personalize the Bible to yourself? Do you do that? Is that a safe way to read the Bible? Well, here's your 3 best friendship tools for Catholic evangelism. Number 1, Bible complexity. Mechanics study motors, architects study design, linguists study syntax, but for the most part, Christians don't study the how-tos of safe biblical interpretation called hermeneutics. Secondly, Aquinas. In the Summa, we see the caution. Aquinas says of the Bible, quote, the manner of its speech transcends every science, because in one and the same sentence, while it describes a fact, it reveals a mystery. And thirdly, a tough comeback. I know it seems plausible to simply say the Bible is a love letter straight from God to humanity, but wait a minute. A sentence or a paragraph in a love letter has context. Yes, with great caution, we can personalize some context, but remember, when you're at the central figure in the Bible, God isn't, and that's just wrong.
Download the app to take our programming with you wherever you go. Hear what listeners are saying about the regularly updated iCatholic Radio app.
The programs on iCatholic Radio are uplifting, educational, and have served to deepen my faith as a Catholic. Thank you for this amazing station.
Download the free iCatholic Radio app in your Android or Apple store today. If you already have the app, please consider giving us a 5-star review or telling a friend about it.
What you're offering and giving to me, you deserve to get back, because you're offering more than I can give.
I learned so much through the Station on the Cross. I listen to the radio station daily, and I absolutely love it.
I was attending the chapel and places like that, and through your programs, I was able to find out how other Protestants had come back into the Catholic Church. God bless the Station of the Cross.
Donate today at thestationofthecross.com.
To Jesus Christ. Welcome back to A Catholic Take, a bold synthesis of information and inspiration. I'm your host, Joe McClain. It's great to be on with you. Praise be to God. Coming up at 30 past the hour, we're going to have a conversation with Dan Sevigny from Sanctus Ranch in Pine Creek, Texas. Just about a month ago, Archbishop Gustavo Garcia Sierra sent a letter out to everyone in the diocese, basically saying they are persona non grata, the Catholic cancel culture alive and well. Well, he's got a good response here, so we've invited him on to talk about that situation. What was the Archbishop complaining about, and what is his response? We're going to get his take, Dan Sevigny's take, at 30 past the hour. Do join us for that if you can. Praise be to God. And, of course, we're welcome and happy to say that Cardinal Edwin O'Brien adds his name to the LifeSite petition against the blessing of homosexual couples. I wish they would say couples in irregular unions, because it seems to me that some of these people are like focusing on the homosexual aspect and not on the, divorce and remarried aspect of that. Irregular unions would be good. I'm just saying, just putting it out there. Anyway, hey, Dr. Anthony Stine rejoins us from Return to Tradition back on the program. Good morning to you, Dr. Stine.
Good morning. How are you today?
Praise be to God. I'm alive, and that counts. How are you?
Doing as well as we can after yesterday's sudden unplugging of virtual civilization. That happened when I was in the middle of a live stream yesterday, and then I was dealing with the after effects of it this morning. So,
yeah. Welcome to the team.
Amazing how much we rely on the machines of the world and can't function without them.
As soon as I got my internet back, I went onto Amazon and bought a flock of messenger doves, so that way I can next time I don't have to worry about it. I'll just. Have the doves
I'm thinking about contacting the local Catholic Native American tribe and learning how the fine art of sending messages via smoke signal. If I could go the old-fashioned way of live streaming.
That's right. Exactly. All right, let's jump in. You've got several videos out this week that really caught my attention, and there's not nearly enough time to get into any of them or most of them. But here's a couple. Let's start with the canceled bishop out of Argentina. This is somebody who goes way back before Pope Francis was Pope. He was just a bishop and cardinal out of Argentina, Bergoglio. Tell me about who this bishop is and why is he speaking out now?
He's been speaking out for years, but it took a long time for him to get any attention by the American media. But we're talking about Archbishop Hector Agur, and I'm sure I'm saying it wrong, but he's the Archbishop Emeritus of La Plata. And if that city sounds familiar to you, it's because that's also where now Cardinal Victor Manuel Fernandez was the Archbishop of after Hector Agur retired. He was the foil to Cardinal Bergoglio in Rome or in Argentina. So whenever Bergoglio would offer something that was not exactly in line with Catholic orthodoxy or was ambiguous and could be misconstrued to be heretical, it was that archbishop who would take the opposite position in the name of orthodoxy. And they didn't exactly have the best relationship. So when Bergoglio becomes Francis, not terribly long after that, just a few years after that, Hector Agur hits mandatory retirement age and submits his letter of resignation to the Pope for his resignation. Now, most of the time, the Pope can decide or not to take his resignation, to accept it. And in that case, usually it takes days or weeks for it to be accepted. That case, it was hours. It was like they were waiting for it.
Wow.
Everything I've read on this says that it was the same day he was told to vacate.
Wow.
And that they would be sending somebody to replace him.
They did not like this guy.
No, they did not. So now some would say, well, that means he's got an axe to grind, personal baggage with the Holy Father. I can see where somebody would come from saying that, but at the same time, the public letters he writes are always on the side of orthodoxy. They're always, this is what the church has always taught. What you're seeing now is some normalization of sin or some flirting with heresy or horrible managerial things being done where predators are being protected. Whatever the issue is, I mean, he has spoken on a lot of different things. It reminds me of like early Vigano without quite the bite that letters would have. You remember back in 2018 and 2019, people would critique Vigano for being very clearly angry, like overtly angry. And there's more measure in Hector Agur's letters than there were in Carlo Maria Vigano's.
So what is he speaking about right now? Like what criticisms is he levying against Pope Francis at the moment?
Well, in this case, it was fiducia supplicans and the confusion that it's causing. Yeah. And I mean, these are sins that you can't be trying to normalize. I think the reason you see so many people focusing on the homosexuality part of this is because adultery is bad, condemned by the church unequivocally, and always has been. Homosexuality is like a step above that, though, because at least adultery does not violate nature, whereas homosexuality cries out to heaven for vengeance or justice, depending on your translation, because it violates the natural law. And I think that's the difference when you see this. But then again, the Vatican has played fast and loose with adultery since at least Amoris Laetitia, and really since they started changing how annulments can be made, how easy it is to get an annulment. I mean, none of this is really new. I think it's just partially the focus on homosexuality has to do with the state of the culture, how the voices in that quote unquote community have been very strident and not really caring about overturning the moral order. And the fact is, the adultery issue in the church has been something that's been tinkered around with for a decade, at least, if not longer.
Yeah. I want to switch to another topic that I'm going to say is tangentially related, and that is We Were Warned is back on your channel. Praise be to God. I'm glad to see this. In fact, but you start with a doozy here, Dr. Stine. This is, I guess his name is Saint Nilus, and this is the 5th century. And I watched this thing twice this morning because this prophecy is so spot on for our time that it is, in fact, very chilling, as you have rightly described it. Tell us about it.
He's describing submarine travel.
Well, who is he for starters? Who was he, and then what did he say?
He was a 5th century Eastern saint. Eastern Byzantine Empire. He had a job essentially in the public sector, right? He was like a layman who eventually became kind of a desert monk, but he had visions of submarine travel and telecommunications and airline travel and things, and he called it all a great deception of Satan. Not because people weren't really doing this. Obviously, if you've ever gotten onto an airplane and landed half a world away, you'd know you actually did it. But these things would help puff man up full of himself, turn his eyes from God. Remember, the old thing that we always need to remember is that the reason that atheism is itself a form of Satanism is not because you're worshiping Satan. It's just that you're worshiping something else other than God, yourself. Satan doesn't really care what it is you are worshiping as long as it's not the triune God, because then he has you. It doesn't matter. I'm sure he finds it amusing when somebody worships him, but beyond that, it doesn't matter. As long as you turn your eyes from God, that's all that matters.
I know we're going to be linking to your video, and I'm sure most of our audience that are hanging out with us this morning is probably already aware of it. But Return to Tradition is the YouTube channel. And what I found really just fascinating was just how many details are in that prophecy for our time that really match. There seemed to be a nod towards transgenderism in there as well.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that doesn't surprise me. If you look at the long arc of human history, brave historians have noted that the collapse of empires often has that and civilizations often is marked by confusion on that issue, on gender issues. That sodomy and then the more exaggerated forms of that, like the gender identity stuff, that just seems to pop out of the woodwork before civilizations collapse, which should be reassuring for everybody, of course. But but people need to remember the point of these of prophecy, which is we have free will. If we actually live the gospel, which is to go forth and baptize all nations and actually spread the gospel of our Lord, the message of his saving grace and what he had gave for us, you can actually put a stop to these things by spreading the gospel. Yeah. It's just that for whatever reason in the modern world, we Catholics have become very bad at it and unwilling to do it. And I don't know why that is. Obviously, it's not true for everybody. There are plenty of good Catholics working on their neighbors and things, and there are street evangelization missions out there. But for whatever reason, as a people, we have grown very lukewarm on this.
Yeah, I read the gospel today. I chose the option. In the Novus Ordo, you get lots of options to pick and choose from. I chose the John 15 option today from the gospel passage. And boy, is it ever clear. You got to make a choice. But do you want to look like the world or do you want to be with God's will, which is contrary to the world? And I think too often, I was just looking at a picture of Father James Martin yesterday blessing yet another homosexual couple at an event. That looks like the world. That feels like the world. It doesn't feel in contradiction to the world that Jesus speaks of in John 15. The chicken dance mass.
Have you seen that?
Yes, I did see that. Yeah, in fact, the report that came out this week, I'm going to get you to comment on this about Germany, closing door after door after door, and the German synodal way trying to find a backdoor option to get what it wants. And you've commented on that in your channel this week as well.
Yeah, I'm going to be redoing my live stream from this morning where it came out that the Vatican told them no. because what the German bishops want is to decentralize the hierarchical authority. They want to invert the hierarchy. They want to have the actions of bishops and the hiring of bishops, and I use the word hiring explicitly here, to be determined by the laity. That's what the German bishops want. They want doctrinal issues determined by the laity, and they do it. They're using the sex abuse crisis as their reason, as their excuse. Wow. That is absolutely diabolical. And that was too far even for this synodal stuff. But again, most of the past warnings they got from Rome was, don't do this without the rest of the church. Because, as Bishop Botzing himself of Germany said, what the German bishops are doing is not that different than what the Synod of Synodality is calling for. So I
don't buy the argument that they're being shut down. I think they're being delayed. That's how it feels to me.
That's how it feels to me too.
Yeah.
Go with the whole church.
And I think the proof is in the pudding. I read an article this morning, and I don't have a lot of time. Maybe I'll do this as an extra piece of content today. But I saw an article this morning that there are swaths of Roman Catholics who are going back to paganism in the city of Rome. They are abandoning their faith, and they're actually conducting pagan liturgies to Jupiter and Minerva and all this, and Juno.
Are they actually doing the whole, like, go get a cow and go find a butcher to actually offer it up, so to speak?
They haven't yet gotten that far, but they do talk about that in this article. I'm going to link to it in the show notes today. It's from religionnews.com. But I'll probably do a separate video on it. And it's insane to me. And the statistics of Catholics going to Mass in the city of Rome or all of Italy are plummeting. They're an all-time low. So the culture of meet them where they're at, but forget about where they got to go, is just obviously not working. It's not working in Germany. It's not working across Europe. It's definitely not working in Italy. And why isn't that proof enough for the rest of us to go, yeah, something's not working here. We need to do something completely different. It's time to reverse course. But no, we just keep going down this, skipping down this path toward the wide perdition of hell. But anyway, we're out of time. Dr. Stine, if you can come back at the top of the hour, we'd love to have you back on, follow up, continue our conversation in the after show. But return to tradition. Check out the YouTube channel. We'll link to it in the show notes. Yeah, for you over at thestationofthecross.com/ACT. Producer Jake will be putting those up at the top of the hour. Coming up after the break, more breaking news and stories, and then Dan Sevigny is on the team from Sanctus Ranch in Pine Creek, Texas. The cancel culture of the Catholic Church is off the rails. We're going to talk about that and a lot more coming up next. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back, but you got to share us with a friend. Thank you in advance.
The Gospels record many instances of our Lord going off to a secluded place to pray, so we can be sure that finding a quiet place for prayer is vital for us as well. Located in the serene setting of Cranberry, Pennsylvania, the St. Thomas More House of Prayer is the perfect place to deepen your prayer life or to hold a group retreat. The St. Thomas More House of Prayer is a Catholic retreat center whose mission is to pray the Liturgy of the Hours and spread this beautiful prayer of the Church. Book a visit or learn more by going to liturgyofthehours.org or call us at 814-676-1910. That's 814-676-1910.
Ask a Priest Live, weekdays at 6 p.m. Eastern on the Station of the Cross. We'll bring you a different priest each weekday where you can participate in a live Q&A on the topics that matter. To get your question in for Father, call 1-877-511-5483 while the show is live. Email us anytime at priests@thestationofthecross.com or visit our show page at thestationofthecross.com/askapriest.
At the Station of the Cross, we understand that life circumstances can affect your giving options, whether by moving or by switching banks and credit card numbers. Please let us know if recent changes have been made to your payment information so that we can better serve you as you continue to bless us with your financial support. Update your information today at thestationofthecross.com or by calling 1-877-888-6279, extension 104.
Praise be to Jesus Christ. Welcome back to A Catholic Take, a bold synthesis of information and inspiration. I'm your host, Joe McLean, and here are your headline news. LifeSite News reports Washington bill that would have forced priests to break the seal of confession is dead. Glory be to God. SB 6298 has not been scheduled for an executive session and thus will not be moving forward, according to the Washington State Catholic Conference spokesperson Adrienne Joyce, who told LifeSite News that the legislative staffers confirmed the bill's status, as did the Diocese of Spokane. The bill is dead. Praise be to God, the bill is dead. The Blaze reports Boeing removes 737 MAX program after panel blowout incident. Ed Clark has been replaced after nearly 18 years with Boeing. Clark has led the 737 MAX program since 2021, overseeing the company's factory in Renton, Washington. The Renton facility managed the final assembly of the Alaska Airlines 737 MAX 9 plane involved in last month's incident. According to the United States National Transportation Safety Board's preliminary report, the plane may have left the factory without the key bolts to secure it. I wonder if they're also going to replace the line workers who didn't put those bolts in. The Hill reports CBS faces uproar after seizing investigative journalist files. There is trouble brewing at BlackRock, the headquarters of CBS, after the firing of Catherine Herridge, an acclaimed investigative reporter. Many were shocked after Herridge was included in the layoffs this month, but those concerns have increased after CBS officials took the unusual step of seizing her files, computers, and records, including information on privileged sources. Catherine Herridge was investigating the Hunter Biden laptop story and was just about to give her report on the same day that she was fired. The heavy-handed approach to the files left many wondering if it was the result of the past reported tensions over the stories that got her kicked out the door. BlackRock. Anyway, those are your headline news. Hey, don't forget, today I'm going to be releasing part 2 of our series on the trustful surrender to divine providence. I'm doing this all throughout Lent for our ACT insiders. And you can be a part of it if you just join the insider crew and get access to the Telegram group. I'll live stream it there today. And then I'll put the content, the recorded content, into our ICR Plus Premium tab on the mobile app. So we're going to be reading it all throughout Lent. If you've never read Trustful Surrender to Divine Providence, The Secret of Peace and Happiness by St. Claude de la Colombière and Father Jean-Baptiste Saint-Jure, you need to. It is fantastic. Highly recommend it. I've been reading it now for 20 years, and I'm happy to share it with you. Again, to get access, just go to thestationofthecross.com/ACT and make sure to sign up to the email list. You'll get access to the Telegram group in an immediate response, as well as other goodies for being an insider. So do that today. Praise be to God. Hey, I saw this, that there was a big dust up in San Antonio. Now, San Antonio is my hometown. Of course, I went to the one and only Mighty Judson Rockets. It's the only high school anyone should ever have to go to in their life. Otherwise, my deepest condolences. But nonetheless, San Antonio is near and dear to my heart. So to see a letter go out from the Archbishop in San Antonio, basically condemning an organization that's trying to do great things, it's very concerning. It concerned a lot of people, and some very serious accusations have been laid down. We've invited Dan Sevigny from Sanctus Ranch in Pine Creek, Texas, to be on to give us the response to this letter. And he joins us now. Good morning to you, Dan.
Well, good morning, Joe. Thanks for having me.
Praise be to God. We appreciate your time today. This must have been a very tense time in your life for you and your family and your staff and everybody else involved.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's one of those moments that I don't think you prepare for, you don't see coming. We're still quite frankly, confused, befuddled a little bit of how this happened, how it gets here. But here we are, nonetheless.
All right. So let me just ask you, I have the letter from the Archbishop in front of me. What were his points? What did he complain about? What did he say are problems that need to be corrected that you refuse to correct?
Well, the letter started off with this idea that for months we've been trying to get in touch with me, and that hadn't happened. And when in fact we had received a request to meet and we're planning to do so. And then the letter continues to go on to talk about many things that, quite frankly, Joe, are in such a great misrepresentation. It's hard to even make sense of them. There were basically 5 points in there. They were talking about, priests that we are in contact with, some priests that live here on the property. It brought in a new private micro school that we have started this year, Lumen Christi Academy, which is a Monday through Thursday school here, and made accusations that somehow we were saying it was an archdiocesan Catholic school. It even went so far as to say that I used the word Catholic in my website repeatedly without permission, when really I was referring to myself as a Catholic in the bio on the website. So there's just a lot of things that were in this that just don't seem to make much sense. And we've scratched our head to kind of figure out what the motivation was behind it. But unfortunately, it was done in such a public way. And all these falsehoods were put out there in such a dramatic way on the website and pushed down through every organization within the diocese and down even to prayer groups at different parishes to make sure that everyone knew that there was a problem, that we really had no choice. We have to respond to it.
Wow. Okay, so here's what's interesting to me is the Archbishop in his letter does in fact say that he reached out, tried to talk to you, tried to reason with you, to get you to see the light and come to a better conclusion. But Dan, you failed to do that. So I want you to readdress that. You mentioned it a second ago, but I want you to bring that up because I'm scratching my head here, Dan. When I go to your website, I see images of Archbishop Gustavo Garcia Sierra saying Mass there. I'm really confused here. In the letter, he says, Dan, that the chapel, the one he apparently has said Mass in, the chapel is not consecrated. It is not approved, and no sacrament should be happening there, except for, I guess, the ones that he, confected because he was saying Mass. I'm confused. Dan, help me understand.
Absolutely. I was asked to meet with a representative of the Archdiocese, and through email correspondence, we had set up a meeting. Unfortunately, we got to that meeting date at the end of January, and we had just had a hill country freeze, and I own a retreat center, and we had broken pipes, and I was standing in 6 inches of water in the well house trying to repair pipes. And so I needed to reschedule that meeting. There was also kind of an expansion of questions that they had that were never brought to me before. So I asked to reschedule that. And the day after I asked to reschedule that meeting, I received a very curt note from the in-house counsel of the Archdiocese stating that all future correspondence should go through the attorney. I didn't know that we were dealing with attorneys at this point, and It was pretty much shut down. And within a couple of days after that, then this whole news broke, this prohibition. And it is confusing, Joe, because we've had the Archbishop out for different retreats that have come to Sanctus Ranch, and we've been doing retreats here since 2017. We acquired the property, purchased the property back in 2016. I would say that somewhere in the neighborhood of 90%, 85 to 90% of all the retreats that we've hosted here at Sanctus Ranch have been Catholic retreats that have come in. We've catered towards that. I'm a devout Catholic myself. And so we have had many priests. We've had the Archbishop. We've had Auxiliary Bishop Gary here as well that have said Mass on altars that we have provided. We've provided vestments, and we've provided everything that we can for those Catholics to be able to have a great retreat experience while they're here at Sanctus Ranch. And so it's just quite shocking to have that be brought out as if in some ways we have done something that is different when we've been doing this for years. And quite frankly, we've tried to just be a facility that when those retreats come here, they're well taken care of. Food, lodging, as well as access to the things that can give us a more reverent sacramental experience. And that's our goal.
You know, I get the sense after reading both the Archbishop's letter and your response, which we're going to link to both of these in the show notes today at thestationofthecross.com/ACT. I get the sense, though, that the real crux of this issue is he does not approve of these canceled priests that are living on your property. And he does not want your chapel to be leveraged like a sort of a get out of jail free card, like a parish hidden in the woods that's untouched by the local chancery office. And so he has basically shut you down in order to prevent that from happening. Am I fair in that assessment?
You know, those are reasonable assessments based on the information that's been there. You know, as of now, I've received what you've received. I received one additional letter that had almost the same points. There has been no dialogue on that. I do have a few priests that I have offered a place to stay here. You know, one of the things that happens with unassigned or canceled priests is very often they don't even have a place. Right. So here at Sanctus Ranch, we have retreats all the time, but you know, I've taken in families that have been in a challenging situation. I've taken in folks that have had a domestic abuse situation. Hey, come and we have facilities. We just try to be good Christians in what we do. That has been the case with the priest as well. You know, when you have a priest that's on site, he says his mass, and that has been how we've just proceeded forward. And so I think there may be other issues that are here, possibly between the Archbishop and individual priests. It's just very, very concerning, Joe, that even in that letter, some of these attacks were not against Sanctus Ranch. They were not against me personally, although I was definitely brought into it. They were addressing individual priests, of which I was never ever given information about individual priests that were a concern to the archdiocese. And then the challenge is it was just full of misrepresentations. Those are not factually accurate accusations that are in that letter. And that's what my response tried to address is we need to clear the good name of these individual priests and the good name of what Sanctus Ranch has been doing. You know, for you know, years and years and years, we've been providing a place where people can retreat from the world, encounter Jesus Christ. And all we've been trying to do is to build up the family, to build up the domestic church, and all of these things that we've approached and really sacrificed all that we have to make available for folks. And so it does need to get addressed, and we need to get the information out, because this is quite unfortunate, and it's such an egregious overstep. We have men that are in power. They have great responsibility. I have great responsibility as a father, as a leader of certain organizations and things that go on. We must take that responsibility and make sure that we're not scandalizing the faithful. And quite frankly, Joe, I could give you story after story of how much scandal this has brought to individuals totally unjustly.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to be up against a break here in just a moment. We're talking with Dan Sevigny from Sanctus Ranch. Again, we're going to be linking to all this stuff in the show notes today. There are two priests that are living on the property now, if I'm not mistaken. I want to talk more about them on the other side of the break, because in transparency, one of those priests, Father Fashing, is a regular on our network, here at the Station of the Cross Catholic Media Network. I mean, he was on Jim Haven's program, The Simple Truth, just yesterday, and is on every single week. He's a great priest. We enjoy having him on the show, and he's very popular with our audience. So he is one of the two that are involved in here. And your response, I thought, was very well written. Is very, it didn't get vitriolic or really angry. It was just clear, concise, and factual and sober. And I think that's what we need now more than ever. But there needs to be an adult in the room in this crazy age that we live in, because it too wants to embrace this world and look just like the world and be friends of the world. But God sent us to be contrary to the world.
We're to be contrarians to the world. Why? To save the world. Because they won't save themselves. They need someone to be able to stand up and say, this is truth, and you need to abandon this world and embrace it. Because truth is a person. That person is Jesus Christ. And he has come to save souls. And be not mistaken by the fact that, yes, we are living in the time of great mercy, but that is coming to an end. And soon the time of judgment will be on. And then he will sit in his seat and he will judge. So you and I have to do something about that while we still can. And to those that are given much, much is expected. So that's what we're doing today. More from Dan coming up right after the break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Hello, this is Father Jim Netto of the Diocese of Portland, Maine. In Krakow, Poland on the 2nd of June, 1938, the Lord Jesus himself directed a young Polish Sister of Mercy on a 3-day retreat. Sister Faustina painstakingly recorded Christ's instructions in her diary, that is, a mystical manual on prayer and divine mercy. These instructions became Faustina's weapon in fighting the good fight. Jesus began, "My daughter, I want to teach you about spiritual warfare." Secret number 21. Do not be guided by feeling, because it is not always under your control, but all merit lies in the will. In this secret, we are reminded that all merit lies in the will, because love is an act of the will. We are completely free in Christ. We must make a choice, a decision for good or evil. What camp do we live in? For God created man a rational being, conferring on him the dignity of a person who can initiate and control his own actions. God willed that men should be left in the hand of his own counsel, so that he might on his own accord seek his Creator and freely attain his full and blessed perfection by cleaving to him. By free will, one shapes one's own life. Our free will is a force for growth and maturity in truth and goodness. It attains its perfection when directed toward God. In fact, the more one does what is good, the freer one becomes. Lord God, in your goodness, take away from us all that is harmful, so that, made ready both in mind and body, we may freely accomplish your will.
Be to Jesus Christ. Welcome back to A Catholic Take, a bold synthesis of information and inspiration. I'm your host, Joe McLean. It is great to be on with you. Praise be to God. Hey, I'm seeing Lost Creole talk about chicory coffee in the chat box today. That's triggering, little Lost Creole. I got a story to tell. I'll tell you about that in the after show coming up at the top of the hour. We say goodbye to the radio audience and we stay on for the live video feed. And by the way, coming up on Monday, Xavier Reyes-Zahal is back on the show. We're going to be talking to him. Father Murr on next week and others. So stick around. It's going to be a great week of programming. And don't forget, Part 2 of Trustful Surrender to Divine Providence is coming out today in our Lenten series for our insiders. Go on over to thestationofthecross.com/ACT to get in on the inside by signing up to the email list. The response you're going to get in your inbox right away gives you access to the Telegram group, as well as other bennies and goodies, just to say thank you for being a part of our crew. But I'll be releasing and live streaming Part 2 later today, so check that out. We're talking with Dan Sevigny from Sanctus Ranch out in Pine Creek, Texas, about the situation going on over there between the Archdiocese and Sanctus Ranch, and it's not a good one. So we need to pray for resolution here, because the division amongst the body of Christ is never a good thing. It's not good for us. It's not good for the world at large. Dan, welcome back to the show. Let's talk specifically about the two priests that are living on your property. Who are they, and what faculties do they have?
Well, we have Father Donald Kloster that's been with us for a number of months here, and Father Jeff Fashing, as you mentioned. I'm going to let the priest get more into the faculties that they have. Our response has that information. That is one of those things that I think is so gravely concerning about this, is that there are accusations that have been made that are false. We do our due diligence here. Father Donald Kloster is the principal of our new micro school that we started back in September. And he has been excellent educating the kids in Latin and philosophy and theology. And then therefore, he lives on site and does that for us, working through the week with the kids that are in that school. And Father Jeff Fashing has also been with us, and he has been ministering and doing things like you had mentioned. He has part of a radio show that's on your station. And so these are just good and holy priests that are serving the laity in ways that they can. And Joe, I'll tell you, it's actually quite unexpected. This situation that we find ourselves in can be construed that there's something really nefarious that has gone on. But we've been operating a retreat center now for years and years and years, every weekend having different groups in for retreats, doing retreats of our own, putting on, special events for All Saints Day and Good Friday Stations of the Cross, and just the normal things that we as lay Catholics would do. And earlier this year, one of the ways that I met Father Fashing and one of the ways that I met Father Kloster were at different events that we attended. And Father Kloster in particular, was here in town and he has family that's here. And we were having a rosary revival here at Sanctus Ranch. And so Father came out and he was praying the rosary with many men and women that were out, and we did a 5-day, 24-hour-a-day rosary revival. I know that that's really evil. We shouldn't be doing that stuff, but we were. And I mentioned to Father, I said, hey, we never expected this, but due to some situations that have happened with our school for our children, a few families have come together and said, hey, we're going to need to do something else to make an education available for our children. We looked at homeschooling and other things, but we decided here in the state of Texas, there's this opportunity for a private micro school. And I said, Father, if you're still around, I hope you're not, but is there any chance we're desperate for a Latin teacher? These kids want Latin. And he said, well, I'd be happy to teach Latin. I'd also be happy to help you in other ways. And so in addition to Father Kloster, we have another retired diocesan priest from the Archdiocese of San Antonio that's one of our educators. So we are just incredibly blessed to have these men that have given their whole life to the priesthood that currently aren't assigned teaching in our school. And I don't see how there's any challenge with that. And that's what's so shocking about most of this.
SanctusRanch.com is the website. We're going to, again, link to it, SanctusRanch.com. All right, so tell me about the impact this has had on your work. I mean, I imagine this has been really, you said at the beginning of the conversation, really difficult but challenging, but has this really cut into, the business model that is Sanctus Ranch?
Well, that's one of the unfortunate things, Joe. We started, like I said, back in 2016. My wife and I put everything that we had into this. And quite frankly, we hit the great affliction back in 2020. And that was a devastating blow to what we've been doing. And so for the last few years, we've tried to find a way, and the Lord has provided a way to just barely hang on as retreats have been smaller than they were before and other things. But we were just getting back. There were retreats booked every single weekend. We're ready to go. And the model to stay afloat and serve people was there. This letter comes out, and one of the grave situations here, and we're going to continue to pursue it, is that legal contracts that were signed with many parishes for retreats that were supposed to happen in this month and in April and June and July, they just up and said somehow, oh, we're in breach of contract because the Archbishop said so. We're canceling. That's done. It's come from the Archdiocese in-house council. And basically what they've done is they've just illegally broken every contract and said, we're done and we're not coming. This is a devastating blow where they know, we've talked about canceled priests and we talked about canceled bishops and all of those things. This is actually a cancellation of my family that has sacrificed everything to make a retreat center that's well known, that's a great opportunity, that's getting by doing the work, and they've shut down 100% of the income, and it started immediately with no warning. And to say devastating is an understatement.
Wow. So what is your recourse here? What can you do about this?
we are pursuing our canonical and civil options. They will be hearing from us on that part. And quite frankly, Joe, I'll even say, if there are concerned people that say, hey, wait a second, that's not what should be happening to a Catholic family that's trying to operate something that's good and holy, we're desperately in need of help because this is going to be very difficult. This is a David and Goliath moment. We are guilty without any court or anything, just to say it's awful. This has been so scandalous, even to individuals. Not only did they cancel the retreats, the Archbishop and the Archdiocese in their letter said that people are urged not to attend, and they put in all activities.
Yeah, I saw that.
I'm not sure how all activities include, don't come to a fish fry that they might have at Sanctus Ranch as a way to kind of hold on. Don't get involved in anything that's going on. They've got people saying, oh my gosh, I can't go to a private micro school that's operated out of the ranch because the Archbishop has said, I can't set foot there. It's insane. And the laity have to start understanding, and sorry, I get fired up, that this is so egregious that we've got to stand up and say,
I wonder if we're going to see a letter out of the Archdiocese of San Antonio about the egregious activities of Catholic Charities affiliates on the border who are getting government money to funnel illegal immigrants across that border, hand in glove with the cartels. I don't see any letters condemning cartels and the illegal, disgusting behavior that they have perpetuated on these innocent people trying to come across the border, let alone the uninnocent ones, the terrorists and everybody else coming across, the Chinese nationals, CCP officials coming across that southern border. Is there going to be any letter about that saying, hey, cease and desist your use of Catholic on your website because you're doing things that are ethically and morally challenged? No, I doubt it. I don't think we're going to see any kind of letters like that anytime soon. So, yeah, I get fired up too, Dan.
And Joe, and I will tell you, I have never, ever seen a letter like this for any of the Protestant retreat centers or anything else that's out there.
Nothing.
This is a blatant
Does
attack.
Planned Parenthood get a cease and desist? I'm just curious. Nope, probably not. Nor does the DVD porn shop or anything else within the jurisdiction of the Archdiocese of San Antonio. Just another day at the office. Anyway, Dan, God bless you. God love you. SanctusRanch.com is the website. SanctusRanch.com. We'll see you guys in the after show. God love you. God bless you. So what did you think of today's show? Let's discuss that right now in the after show. Your take on the after take. Comment, interact live with me and the team. All you need to do is search for one of our live video feeds on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, LinkedIn, and elsewhere. Simply search for the Station of the Cross, Joe McClain, or A Catholic Take. I'm looking forward to seeing you and interacting with you directly. It all starts right now. It's the after show.
And we are back. Welcome to the after show, everyone, and happy Friday in Lent.
Man, happy Friday.
That was impressive fitting that rant in the last 30 seconds.
Yeah, tick. Anyway, good morning, everybody. Praise be to God. Dr. Stein's back. Good morning to you again. Thanks for hanging out.
Good morning.
I see Mike K, Jen Nugent, Luz, Damon. Good morning to you, Paul, Cindy K. Good morning to you, Mimi, Nick the Mike, and Eileen. Good morning to you. Thanks for being on the team today. Praise be to God. I see Nick the Mike is also over on the Rumbles. James 16897 is there as well. Good morning to you. Sci-Fi Mike is on the team. He wants to know, and he asked this earlier, Dr. Stein. He said, what is the smoke signal equivalent for an asterisk in case we make a typo? How do you?
I don't know. See, I need to go learn that fine art from the locals. And I joke about an American Indian Catholic tribe, but in reality, there's a tribe here that had just like all the other tribes in Oklahoma had the thumb screws put on them by the government, and they demanded to have access to the black robes, and so finally the government let some Benedictine missionaries in.
Yeah, praise be to God. Those are great stories, by the way.
I live in the town, by the way, that was founded essentially by those missionaries.
Really? That's super cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, Jane, good morning to you. Patty and Mimi, good morning to you. Praise be to God. Glad you guys are on the team today. Thanks for doing it. June Yabara
good morning to you. Janice, good morning to you. Don Paddock, Lori, good morning. Diane. Diane said, thank you, Dr. Stine, for opening my eyes. You are my go-to news in the morning now. Praise be to God. That's awesome.
Well, make sure you make sure to fit Joe's show in too, because it's you do very good work and are very willing to say the things that I can't say on YouTube. So
I do get my hand slapped on occasion though.
Our Vatican spy has been slacking. He's not. Not very proactive.
I do always tell people to pray for our Vatican handlers, whatever that poor seminarian or deacon is, who's got the unwelcome job of watching a bunch of American podcasters and taking notes.
Yeah.
Maybe you. I'm still a tiny blip on the radar. So you, however, have a much bigger, significant. Blip on that radar. So, I'll pray for your handler for sure. I probably don't have one assigned yet, so that'll be fun. Chesty Marine, I'm glad you're doing better and you're recovering. We're praying for your health and your recovery there. Karen, good morning to you. Catherine Hickey, Polachicho, good morning to you, my friend. You got some hometown roots in San Antonio too, I know. I think you and I can both appreciate how painful it is to read the news or to talk about the situation in San Antonio. It's not been good for a long time, by the way. It's definitely not been a great thing for a while now. But, Helen O'Connor, good morning to you. Glad you're here. Aitna Murphy, Alberto, KSW, Deborah Saints, good morning to you. Thanks for doing it. Praise be to Jesus. Let's see. Liz Finch is here. Mac Thompson, good morning to you. The Lost Creole, you were triggering me earlier talking about Creole coffee or about the chicory out of New Orleans. I got into a debate over the last weekend over that. I was doing the camp out with the troops of St. George, and one of the other dads was like, chicory coffee, that's not even drinkable. It's just and
does chicory coffee have caffeine in it?
I'm not sure. I don't, to be honest, I don't even pay attention to the caffeine count in coffee.
Oh, I do. I need the caffeine. I am.
Oh, so do I.
My name is Anthony, and I'm a caffeine addict.
Yeah, I brewed up some Pete's today. Yeah, you guys ever hear of Pete's? I got Pete's for the first time today in the cup. It's okay. I would say
I'm
I got
from
the
where
French
Pete's
roast.
coffee is from, and I never liked Pete's coffee, and I'm from where they're from.
It's hilarious because part of the argument I got in the debate was I've been drinking the community coffee dark roast, and I think it's pretty decent. But the other dad was like,
is that the red bag stuff at the grocery store? Is that the red bag stuff at the grocery store?
It's red, but this one it's red and black because it's the really dark, bold one. Mm-hmm. So it's got the black on it on the bag. But generally, it's a red bag community coffee, and it's a Louisiana.
Now, does it taste like it's trying to hit that sweet Starbucks demographic? Because there's a lot of like the grocery store coffees seem like they're trying to get that, scorched with flamethrower taste to their coffee.
Oh man. Yeah. I find, this is part of my issue is I find that most coffee, no matter how I prepare it, tastes burnt. It's not rich and smooth. You're old enough to remember, Dr. Stein. What do you, Jake, what do you do? That's rude. I've been doing that to our guests. Yeah. You're old enough to remember. You remember the Folgers commercials from the 80s and how they secretly replaced.
The best part of waking up. Yeah. I like to tell people the best part of waking up has never been Folgers in your cup. Like I can't drink that. I could drink. That's like break glass in case of nuclear war kind of coffee. Like it's better than not having any. That's about it.
That's about it.
But then again, I've had the worst commercial coffee in the world, which is Quick Trip coffee. You ever been to a Quick Trip gas station?
No.
Their coffee is bad, real bad.
Real bad. Well, the point I was going to make was, some of the best coffee I've ever had I've been at like fancy restaurants or like high-end gala dinners, and the coffee, I drink it black, and it tends to be smooth and rich. I'm like, that's all I'm looking for. Smooth and rich. I just want it to be smooth and rich. I don't want it to taste bland and burnt. And the majority of coffee, I would argue, no matter what I get, tastes bland and burnt. At least chicory has a flavor. I'm going to give it that. At least it has a flavor. This Pete's is kind of more of the same. I'm going to be honest with you.
Chicory has no caffeine, by the way.
There you go, folks. There you go. Pete Santos, good morning to you. Praise be to God. You covered this story out of San Antonio, didn't you, Dr. Stine?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Your guest is one I'd love to have a conversation with at some point, but it's hard for me to do interviews because of the time constraints I have. The time of day I do my thing is hard. Makes interviews difficult.
Yeah, which is
like I was on with Michael Hitchborn last night, and that was
I saw that.
That was, I thought that I was not that good last night. So
well, okay. So it's interesting you bring this up. Can we talk about the insider baseball here on how Catholic talking heads do their work? Are we allowed to talk about this publicly? Because
sure,
if I reveal how the menu is made, you may be turned off. But here's the deal: I've been doing radio since the 90s and new media content since at least 2005, maybe a little sooner than that, actually. And so I've
you were one of the first on YouTube, weren't you?
Well, I wouldn't. Yes, I was on YouTube in 2008, but not in an overtly Catholic way as I am now. I was doing archery videos for a long time as well. I had a YouTube channel called The Catholic Hack because it had a podcast called The Catholic Hack, which was Catholic apologetics. But anyway, the point I was going to make is I've interviewed thousands of people over my career. And now I've just gotten to the point in life where I can no longer jump through all the hoops to accommodate everybody's schedule in life. They want it as easy as possible to fit into their world. And I don't blame them for that. But it creates so much extra work and difficulty on our side that I've just basically made the rule that 99.9% of the time I will not accommodate a custom schedule. Not because I'm trying to be, arrogant or anything like that. It's just that I have to get up at 3-something in the morning every day, no matter what. So I have to be up early before 4 every morning, no matter what. Number 2, to pre-record an interview doubles the workflow for me and my team. So we already have a busy day. We don't need double. Double's more work, So if we're going to run, we need to be as efficient as possible. So basically, I've come to the point in life, and I didn't used to be this way. I've come to the point in life where I just listen, shows at 7 a.m. Eastern, but I'm in California. I know. I realize that. I'm my heart breaks. I'm sorry you have to get up early, but I'm already going to be up early, So, but and some people are great. Like the industrious family yesterday I had on. They're in Idaho. They were up at 4 a.m. to be on our program, and happily so. I got a guest coming up soon, and he has a near-death experience story, which is John Henry Weston interviewed him, and I asked him.
So he's used to. It's just like waking up early, basically.
Yeah, and I asked him. I said he's from Arizona. I'm like, "You gonna be all right with getting up?" He's like, "Yeah, I'll get out of bed early to talk about Jesus, no problem." But I can't tell you, Dr. Stine, how many famous, well-loved, well-respected Catholic media talking professional speakers, writers, authors, experts that if I named their names, you would absolutely know and love them. We're like, I cannot get out of bed early. I don't go to bed till late. And my answer is,
I will say this job is
one day. Just one day. I'm all asking is one day, but they can't do it.
Tim Gordon pointed out that most people, if you want, he says a lot of really smart people keep odd hours.
I know.
What he didn't mention is that actually goes both ways. Odd hours can mean like you or I, we get up at we might already be bright-eyed and bushy-tailed when the witching hour hits, having a cup of coffee in hand. Or on the flip side of that, you might be getting up at 11 o'clock in the morning, because your body clock never got reset after college. Right. And I suspect a lot of people do that. Like if you see somebody live streaming at 8 o'clock at night, that person doesn't keep normal hours. They just don't. Someone who is well enough to handle a live chat and to go over all the details they need to at 8 p.m. is not someone who is going to bed at 9.
I get that, but let me push back a little bit on that. I understand. I'm not trying to be a hard knock case, but most of these people are men, and I'm sorry, as a man, you should be able to get yourself out of bed whenever you need to, no matter what, sleep or not. So even if you've never slept that whole night, you should be able, out of sheer discipline, get yourself out of bed and do what you need to do because you're a man. That's just built into us as men. And I'm not saying that to be boastful. It's just part of who we are. So when
I've live streamed this week on an hour of sleep. It happens, right?
I know you have, which is why I'm even talking to you about it, because I know that with your situation and your hours and whatever, I know you can relate to this. So on one level, I'm like, I'm sorry, aren't you a male? Then what is your excuse? So you know, or number two, you know, you could choose out of a sheer sense of professionalism to go to bed early that one night and get more sleep. So you're up and you are ready to go. Like, I just don't understand why, and I guess I'm complaining here and I shouldn't be, I should just be explaining. But at the end of the day, I think we should be professional about what we do and how we do it. And especially if we're going to collaborate to try to move the needle in this crazy, chaotic world we live in, within the church and without. So like minds should be collaborative in that regard. So you know what? It's like I've just come to the conclusion that no matter what their name is, how big their name draw might be, it ain't worth it. It's not worth it. It's just not. It's not worth the extra effort. And because, like, to your point, last night you were on with Hitchborn, which is Hitchborn's great. I'm going to be with Hitchborn not next week, week after next. I'm going to be in Virginia at his press conference. I'm looking forward to it. But you know, Hitchborn's great. Gets out of bed early when we need him to. Gets on the show early. You know, no problem whatsoever. But for you, that was a very long day. By that time of day, you're kind of spent. You're spent emotionally, psychologically. You know, your thoughts aren't as collected and sharp. That's true for me. I'm probably older than you, but I know it's true for me. What was that like for you?
Oh, I was exhausted. I went to bed within like 20 minutes of being off the thing. My wife and I did Compline, and then I went to bed. It was Compline early, real early, but for most people. But because I'm not good at night. And that's my main reason that I often turn down evening interviews and evening live streams, is because I'm not very good at night. So I feel like I'm actually bringing down what other people are doing if I'm up that time. It's just the way it is. I can't imagine if somebody tried to invite me on a Friday in Lent, because I don't like talking about my own like Lenten fastings and things, but because of my restrictive diet, I do total fasts on Fridays. And so I can't even imagine what if someone just were like, hey, could you come out at 8:00 on a Friday? I'd be like, well, let's see, that'll be hour 27 or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But you still did it though. You still were on with him last night. So hats off to you for doing it. You know, that's
that was like it was another example of the pre-show or the after show more interesting than the actual show kind of situation.
Yeah.
You can talk about a lot of really spicy things when you're not necessarily live on YouTube. You know,
that's true. So true. Hey, Karen Andy Bashaw, good morning to you. Says my husband's up every weekday at 5:15 a.m. Boy, I'd love to sleep into 5:15. That'd be fantastic. Yeah. Regardless, if he slept or woke up in the middle of the night, he gets up. He gets up a whole. It's blocked. I gotta move this. He gets up. What does it say? He gets the whole getting to work on time thing. Too many younger men don't. Boy, I gotta tell you, that's one of my pet peeves, Karen, is the getting to a place you have to be. My wife is the polar opposite to this. She never feels the obligation to be at a place on time. And I remember when I first met her, we were supposed to go meet her family. And I'm like, what time are we supposed to be there? Oh, we're supposed to be like, I think it was like 2:00 or something like that. And I'm like, we have an hour drive. We need to get on the road like now. I need to like press the pedal to the metal. If we're going to, she's like, oh, it's okay. It's no big deal. I'm like, no, it's not okay. We're supposed to be there at 2:00. We're going to be there at 2:00. Get in the car. You know, it's like every Sunday, it's the same routine. I'm like, we need to leave right now because I'm going to get there on time is early.
I know the Portuguese. I know the Portuguese are on the western side of Iberia, but they still count as a Mediterranean culture, right?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
She's Azorian.
There you go.
She's Azorian, which is even worse. They're an island people.
There you go. Exactly.
So it's like clocks. What are clocks? I don't even know what a clock is. Like, good grief, you mean the sundial? I think in the square over there. I don't even know.
They just have a medieval perception of time, Joe.
They sure do.
That's
not me. Not
my,
me.
My wife is Finnish, so I think that she does I sometimes wonder if they tell time by the movement of the stars, because there's not that much daylight up there, and it's just written into their DNA.
Yeah. Jane says, but they weren't Marines, Joe. They can't get themselves out of bed early. Janice says, Dr. Stine is the Energizer Bunny.
I wish.
Janice says, Joe and Dr. Stine, I don't listen to regular news. Not worth my time. That's wise advice there, Janice. It says, I listen to you for the news and inspiration, so I go back and listen if I don't make the live shows. I try to respect that, Janice. We talk a lot about, we've mentioned this several times on the program. I don't recommend you live and breathe in the news cycle. Not even on your social feeds or even in programming, that you listen to all the time. Like, you need to have, dive deep into the well of holiness and living in a state of grace and the classics and spirituality. Like, use that as your main course. Programs like mine, and I would also argue Dr. Stine's, are to give you an awareness of what's going on out there. There are lots of stories that I intentionally do not actually cover because it feels like I'm only adding more fuel to the fire in some cases than I am being helpful. Like, I didn't really cover the chicken mass, the thing out of Germany, because frankly, it's just one of many occasions. Every single week.
I cover that kind of stuff in a 20-second joke bit in my show. Like, hey, let's check in with the unique and soul expression of the Roman Rite, and then look. That's how I cover the chicken mass. With that, and then move on.
Right.
A story I would not have covered if I didn't have to was the Rupnik story. I actually don't like covering stories of individual priests being accused of things. I mean, I covered Rupnik, but I didn't like doing it because there were too many cases where certain Catholic watchdog groups would accuse priests of misconduct, typically of the sexual kind, and then it turned out that wasn't the case. And I was like, no, I'm not going to contribute to this. So Rupnik, though, you have to cover. There's just no way you can't cover the cover up of a guy who raped nuns by the Vatican. You can't. There's no way to not cover that.
Can I just bring one thing up that came to mind on that story? Because I did cover that story this week. There was a press conference. These three former nuns. They've been essentially they've had their vows removed and they were kicked out. Thank you, Your Holiness, for your support. It's a tragic story. I'm glad they're speaking out. But here's one thought that comes to mind, and I want to be careful about how I say this. I'm not making them out to be bad guys, but I am struggling to understand how they would have participated in this behavior at all. Is there something I don't understand in this story? Because it's like Rupnik was talking about threesomes as an act of the Trinity. Like, that's a red flag for just about every human being on planet Earth almost.
You would think the conversation that led to the conversation that led to the conversation that allowed that would have been the red flag. But I think to understand this, you need to go read or look up and watch some content on how cults work. Because I think that's what Rupnik was really running was a schismatic cult within the church. Yeah, and nobody's willing to say that. Nobody's willing to accuse him of that.
Certainly not His Holiness Pope Francis.
Yeah. For some reason, Francis likes to keep protect men like this. Yeah, this isn't the first guy. He's just the nastiest version of it so far, other than Ted McCarrick, because Francis did protect Ted McCarrick too until he had to do something.
That's exactly right. Yeah. I also finished up for this Lent. One of the things that I've been giving up is the scroll on YouTube for entertainment purposes. I still have to use it in the course of my job for research or whatever, but I've put it away for entertainment. And so I've been taking in more spiritual content, and I decided to go through a biography of St. Padre Pio again, because he's my patron, my confirmation saint, and it's been a long time, to be honest with you, since I've read his biography. I've got several, and I love reading them, but I haven't read one in a long time. So I'm going to go through Padre Pio again. So I went through this book, and I to my disgust, at the end of the book, it talks about his tomb being anointed. I can't remember the words they used, but it was so great to have Father Marco Rupnik paint the imagery for the tomb of St. Padre Pio, and I almost threw up in my mouth. I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me.
Right. I mean, I have likened his artwork to being Giger-esque. Not overtly like Giger, but it has that, for some reason, that same unsettling kind of vibe to it.
Yeah.
Where you're looking at something unnatural, and not just unnatural, but something that is mocking nature, which is what Giger was doing. He was doing some commentary on a lot of like sexual stuff going on in the culture at the time he came up with his imagery. If you're not familiar with Giger, if you've ever seen the movie Alien, the monster in that movie is Giger-esque. It's an homage to Giger.
Yeah, I think he did some of the concept art for it. Even I think he was directly involved.
Yeah, I think he did.
In some of it, and he definitely was directly involved in some of the sequels too.
Yeah, and it just I get the same tone and vibe from Marco Repnik in his attempt to make sacred art that doesn't look sacred at all.
It's a turnoff to me. The first time I ever saw artwork that looks like that, it probably was his art that I didn't even know. Like I didn't know anything about him at the time. It was always a turnoff. It feels like 1960s hippy dippy Star Trek nonsense. You know what I mean? Like it just feels false, like fake, materialistic, shallow. It doesn't feel like authentic iconography that you would see from the ancient church. It always felt weird to me, and I didn't know anything about it. Hey, by the way, Robert D. Bruce is on the team, says good morning. Now I want quick trip coffee, rather. You like?
Whoa.
Is it a Lenten penance, Robert D. Bruce? I'm just asking for a friend.
It's sort of like how if you do fasts if you do a hardcore total fast on a Friday, but for whatever reason your body just says no that day, a suitable act of penance would be go to McDonald's and get the double fish fillet. Because they do sell them as doubles now. So one patty is pretty bad, but two patties is like double the displeasure.
Well, that's so good. By the way, Sci-Fi says my milkshakes taste burnt, squallered. If your milkshake tastes burnt, you've got other problems in your hand. I'm just going to say that right now. You probably want to put it down and walk away. I can drink burnt coffee, but I won't drink a burnt milkshake for sure. I haven't even had a milkshake in, forever. Hey, by the way, go ahead.
I was going to say milkshakes are the perfect thing for activating what's called the Randall cycle, which is what happens when your body tries to consume both fat and carbs at the same time.
Yeah.
What it does is it converts the sugar to fat and stores it. So
yeah, real quick, like
bad way. Yeah. If you want to gain weight quickly, drink milkshakes. Ice cream is the perfect weapon to destroy your body with.
Yes, sir.
If it's made with real sugar and dairy, then I would.
Well, dairy's not so much the problem as the sugar. Even
you guys are so anti-sugar, and I'm over here being pro-sugar.
Dairy also,
but I'm a
dairy
fan,
has.
so.
Remember, dairy's biological purpose is to make cows pack on weight as quickly as possible. It has a similar effect on the body. It can. Now, people typically don't consume that much dairy when they do, but even a little bit of cheese makes it so my weight loss efforts stop dead in its tracks.
Yeah,
which didn't used to be a problem for me.
For sure, I'm hovering, but I don't mind at the moment because I like the taste of cheese, and so that will
cheese
be
is amazing.
Cheese is amazing. It's a gift from God. Praise be to God. And then when I want to make frou-frou coffee, I typically drink it black. But when I want to make frou-frou coffee, because I used to be a frou-frou coffee guy. I used to be can I get a venti? Or when I was in Boston, it would be, Dunkin's, can I get an extra, a large extra? Or back in the day at Dunkin' Donuts, you could ask for an extra large. They give you a cup like this big filled with coffee. And then you could put extra cream, extra sugar in it, wash that back with a Boston cream, and it was a full day. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that'd get you at least to the point in the late morning, like say 10, 11 o'clock, where you'd stop and get that big Mountain Dew. And then kick that back with a big pound of M&Ms, the peanut chocolate covered M&Ms, and then that might get you through lunch, maybe.
I never understood the appeal of Dunkin' Donuts coffee. I had it a few months ago, and I was like, "This is not."
Oh, it's not the same. Though.
Not good.
The nonsense that they sell today is not the same as say 10 years ago, or I don't know what year they switched, but now they definitely do the corporate thing. They brew one pot and then they flavor it with a bunch of stuff, and neither the the brewed stuff is any good, even if you drink it black, nor the flavoring is bad for you as well. So what they used to do was much better, at least in my humble opinion. But I'm sure there's lots of people who hate Dunkin' Donuts even from 20 years ago.
I drink coffee brand coffee most of the time.
Okay.
And if I go out for coffee, I'll go to Dutch Brothers.
Dutch Brothers. You like that? I got one opened up right across the street.
Which I only do during Lent, like on Sunday, or in case I absolutely need caffeine to get through the day.
Mm-hmm.
Like I become dangerous on the road if I don't get some coffee, then I'll do that for other people's sake. But
I know that feeling.
Karen says cafe con leche. She likes cafe con. I'm trying to remember my Spanish. Is that with or without?
I mean, coffee with
the milk.
Chili con carne is chili with beans or chili with meat.
Thank you. Yeah, con carne. Thank you. Now that makes sense to me.
This is a good Friday to be doing a total fast.
By the way, I like that
because it's Emperor Friday.
At least on my screen, the guest you had before me, his picture is frozen in a general look of disapproval of our conversation.
He's just staring at you judgingly for talking about food on a Friday. That's what he's doing.
I didn't mention this, but in transparency, I met Dan when I was in Rome at the LifeSci Forum event there. I didn't know who he was. He came up to me and introduced himself.
Was that the one that
to
Bishop Strickland was fired right after going to?
Yeah, exactly. You know, and everybody made such a big hullabaloo over Bishop Strickland's talk there. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, it wasn't even that bad. Like he read this letter from a friend, which he made clear it was a letter from a friend. And he never once said, hey, I agree 100% with this letter. Never did he say such things. He simply expressed the sentiments of concerned Catholics, which is a valid thing to do. Similar to how maybe, say, Father James Martin might say, these Catholics struggling with same-sex attraction. Well, he wouldn't use the word struggling. But nonetheless, they have concerns. Like if we can identify the concerns of people living in sin, then can't you identify the concerns of people who are concerned Catholics? Anyway, no, Bishop Strickland's talk was okay. It was nothing special, really, to be honest with you. It was inspirational, but it wasn't like wow.
They were looking for excuse.
Go back and listen to Cardinal Mueller's speech, which I have. I have a copy of it, and LifeSite News put the whole thing out. Cardinal Mueller read his speech, so it didn't sound very like wow. I mean, because he just read it the whole time, but it was more wow. It was definitely more wow. And you really want some sizzle? Michael Matt wasn't that bad. John Henry Weston was more spicy, but it was the Fatima crew, the Fatima Center crew. Go listen to theirs. That's some spice. Nobody talked about that one. I'm like, Bishop Strickland, it was not that bad. I filmed him. He was in my documentary film. That's why I was there. And I got a great chance to talk to him offline. Wonderful man. Praise be to God. Very inspirational. And totally a nothing burger when it comes to the headlines that came out after that. But yeah, that's where I met Dan. Great guy.
I agree with Patricia Matthews here. Strickland firing was already in the pipeline.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That was in the pipeline the day that those bishops arrived in Tyler.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, exactly. It was a foregone conclusion, which reminds me about the book that I went through for Padre Pio. You know, it was the same story. And the guy who wrote that book is not a radical by any way, shape, or form. And I have to get the title in front of me, and I forget. It's in Italian, so I'd get it wrong if I tried. But he talked a lot about and I have the book that Ignatius Press put out 15 years ago, basically just publishing the report out of the Holy Office from the Monsignor that investigated him. You know, the Holy Office had it out to get Padre Pio, even though there was so much dirt. And Emanuele, he dug up all this dirt, published it all, and threatened to expose all the cockroaches. And even after Padre Pio died and Caro Wojtyła championed the cause, even still the Holy Office dragged their feet and wouldn't cooperate, really. I mean, so this is not their first rodeo. They've done this plenty of times in the past. So, but the good news is,
but you'll never see the German bishops or any of the high-profile synodalists getting apostolic visitations for the bizarro world stuff they say, because they're on the team.
They're on the team.
It's always used. It's a tool used against those with an orthodox inclination.
Yeah. I agree. Hey, Brandon says he hasn't pulled out the rod of iron yet. He has only been using his words and mind. Soon it will get physical. Who are we talking about now? Talking about the
I would
Lord?
imagine that has to be the Lord.
Yeah.
I can't imagine Bishop Strickland pulling out a rod of iron.
The rod of Twitter.
He's kind of a soft-spoken man in that way. He's not.
He's very sincere.
Yes,
you gotta love it. You gotta love it. Very, very sincere. Boy, I can't tell you how my mind was blown on that prophecy video you did this morning. Again, man, was that spot on?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah, I've known about that one for a long time. In fact, I may have presented it as part of a larger thing in the past, but I just get that feeling we should start talking about Catholic prophecy again.
Yeah,
even though I still have I have my hang up with Catholic prophecy, which is I don't want to help somebody accidentally turn their entire spiritual life into reading prophecy and preparing for the apocalypse.
Oh,
unless their preparation for the apocalypse is they go to adoration and stay close to the sacraments and work on their sanctity.
Exactly.
Because I don't become a fatimist where your whole religion is basically apparition chasing.
Thank you. 100%. I'm on that team. You know, the point to my film, I did a documentary film on the end times. You can watch it on the ICR Premium tab of our mobile app, by the way. It's also on my YouTube channel if you want to watch it there. The Secret of the Saints in the End Times. This was one of the big points that I was trying to make in that film, is that, yes, there are very serious prophecies that talk of our times and the very bad things that are going to happen in the not-so-distant future. You ought to be concerned, 100%. But you can't let that consume you. At the end of the day, you live in a state of grace. You cooperate with those graces. You pursue virtue, holiness, and obedient to your state in life. It does not matter what happens at the Holy Office, the Vatican. It does not matter that Coco Palmero gets another day to go skipping merrily off to work while Bishop Strickland gets fired. It does not matter because God will not be mocked and justice will be had in the end. And you need to die in a state of grace. And that is the most important thing that you can focus on, irregardless of Garabandal being true or not. Right? Irregardless of what you believe about Medjugorje. And I've made it clear I'm not on Team Medjugorje.
Neither am I.
But nonetheless, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. I believe in La Salette. I believe in Akita and Fatima. I believe these things. But at the end of the day, my job as husband and father is to get to heaven, help my wife and children get to heven. Live in a state of grace, be obedient. And then if we focus on those things, that'll be the most important thing. But still, even though for you sharing this prophecy of this person who might not even know until your video today, I never even heard of his name. It blew my mind because of how detailed it is and how spot on it is. Submarines, flying, transgenderism. The world has gone comfortable and the average person lives like kings. That's so true. I mean, even I live in a city with a lot of homeless problems and an illegal immigration problem. And as I shared yesterday, my wife and I have been feeding homeless people for many years now. We see them. They all have phones. Okay? They have phones. Let that sink in. I remember one night I stood guard over my parish during the Black Lives Matter riots. They were threatening to burn the place down. Antifa threatened to burn our church down. So a bunch of men stood guard. I took a shift. And so in the middle of the night, I'm standing guard over this parish. It's 150 years old. Beautiful high altar. And so we're not going to let you burn the place down today. I stood there all night long. And this homeless guy comes out, stands in front of the parish. And he's on not one, but two phones. And he's on them for 4 hours. Just standing there. He was hacking the Wi-Fi from the hotel across the street. On his phone. And he was on both phones at the same time. So even the homeless live like kings, compared to previous generations.
Now, if you want to say something unpopular about these kind of things, remind people what the real purpose of Eucharistic miracles are. Because I will tell you, once in a great while, I get an angry comment in one of my videos whenever I talk about the Latin Mass. Somebody who comes in and goes, yeah, well, we have the Eucharistic miracles. You don't. We have all this. We have all this. You trads don't have this. And then you know what the real purpose of Eucharistic miracles is? According to the church, not me, but according to what the church has always said, that they are a sign for people who don't believe in the real presence. That most of the Eucharistic miracles involve where the story focuses on the priest. You always hear about how the priest was lukewarm or didn't believe in the real presence or treated the Eucharist like trash. I never take Eucharistic miracles as an endorsement of anything. They're kind of a tragic thing, actually.
People to greater fidelity, for sure. Laura, good morning to you. Miriam, good morning to you. Praise be to God. I'm glad you're here. Thanks for doing it. Alberto, I agree. He probably was peddling something for sure. I just watched him the whole night long. I thought, what a nefarious character. He tried to hide a little bit, so we went over there and just made our presence known to him. But he was a pretty shady character, to say the least.
At least he wasn't hacking the parish's Wi-Fi.
I don't think we had one, so that would have been harder for him to do.
My parish has Wi-Fi, which is weird.
Yeah,
it's kind of weird that my parish's Wi-Fi that the typical person can access if they follow the rules. Because if you are there, you show up a few minutes before Mass, so you're probably praying before Mass. You're then at Mass, and then you're at maybe Holy Donut Hour, as I call it. None of which should involve you being on your phone, except maybe to check the weather or something.
Yeah. Well, they were streaming, right? So that was like the era of streaming. So they had to make sure they had internet to be able to stream. So that's part of the reason why they set the Wi-Fi up. But I can't remember there being strong Wi-Fi in the building. But there was definitely Wi-Fi at the rectory, I'm sure. So then maybe that was an option. I don't know. I don't know what Wi-Fi he was on, but I definitely know what he was up to. I mean, he was sitting there for hours. It was crazy. But it ended up being a nothing burger, like all night long, no action. We thought we were going to see riots, nothing. But it was fun. It was fun to do. Nerve-wracking for my wife and kids, but fun to do because it was right downtown, right smack downtown. Anyway, let's see here. Cindy K says, my mom was an Army nurse during World War II, also came home from New Guinea with malaria because that was a response to Paul. Speaking of Japan a few months ago, the Maximilian Kolbe Memorial at the cemetery I visit often. I met with the nephew of Secretary of Maximilian Kolbe. That's awesome. The nephew told me his uncle traveled to Japan with Kolbe to start up the place that the nuke did not destroy. Yes, I have a great book on that. It's right here. Fantastic page turner. Can't see, it's not in focus. I wonder if I should switch to this camera. Can you see that?
You can say Father Colby in Nagasaki.
Yes, great book. You ought to get this book. This is published by the Immaculates. It's very dense, but I love this book. I should read this book again. It was so good. Very, very good. Highly recommended. Check it out. Oh, man. Spot on, says Cindy K, with the phone thing. That's how it is here, too. But the homeless having phones. Everybody's got priorities, right? I'll never forget, there's a place not far from here. We used to visit our friends there. And it's it's one of these feast and famine locations. There's lots of places around America that are like this. You'll have mansions on one side of the road and a shack on the other side of the road. Feast and famines. The Ozarks can be like this, for example. There's lots of rural places that are kind of like this. But this was not far. This is right outside of Houston, Texas. And there are really beautiful homes, very expensive homes on one side of the street and literally shacks on the other side of the street. And I remember visiting there one day, and one of these shacks, the car's pretty nice. The door is open, and I can see inside their house. I wasn't trying to be nosy or eavesdrop, but just we were driving by and it caught my attention. Massive television screen inside. You know what I mean? It's like people make priorities. They have priorities in life, right? So obviously the house was a lesser priority. The location where they live was a lesser priority than having the car, the phone, the internet access, the huge TV. It's just some people are like that, right? I guess across the street, they had different priorities and more resources too. Hey, Mac Thompson says, I don't even touch my phone in God's house. Feels wrong. I do have a guilty conscience when it comes to that sometimes. Sometimes I will pull up. I'll use my phone sometimes if I'm trying to get to a certain prayer, or if I need a missal that I don't have one or whatever, I might use my phone for that. But 99.9% of the time, it's on mute.
I often have my chant up on my phone as well as on a book because I'm switching between the two during Mass.
Mm-hmm.
So, because there's a great app for Gregorian chant. So I'm often using both. But singing during Mass is its own distraction anyway, because you're thinking about other things. You know, you're thinking about what's coming up next and getting distracted. So it's luckily the fact that you're assisting kind of helps cover for the distraction that it can be from some of the other things. But I like to go to we have a morning low Mass now. So for Lent, I'm going to that Mass and receiving communion there, and that way to me it's less of a big deal when I get distracted, you know, doing the music for the later Mass. Good benefit.
What is sci-fi talking about over there?
I'm not sure, but
about SpongeBob.
Yes,
what sci-fi? You need more coffee, bro.
You missed it. You missed his SpongeBob reference.
I never watched SpongeBob.
Yeah, I figured. But it was funny that you turned Squidward.
Yeah,
into
we were too.
Squallard.
I think we were too old for SpongeBob when it first hit.
For sure. I mean, like, man, I was all about He-Man and G.I. Joe and Transformers.
I never saw SpongeBob.
That's what I was about.
Yeah. Good grief. I mean,
I've seen a few bits about SpongeBob.
The only thing I know about SpongeBob is the meme that often gets used on some on one particular YouTube channel. 2 hours later, like that's it. That's all. That's the only reference I have to SpongeBob. I have heard that it was a pretty bad influence on children. Is that true, Jake? I mean, does that explain some?
All TV is a bad influence on children.
All TV. Come on now, HGTV.
All TV is a bad influence on children.
No, come on. All TV, I would just say.
Well, it depends on your definition of TV. Okay. The Townsend's channel
the
on
One-Eyed
YouTube.
Monster.
Townsend's on YouTube. That could be a good influence on children. We'll go with that. That could be a good influence on children.
Oh man, Diane. Good morning to you. Says I also feel that singing in choir at Mass can be a distraction. All are welcome. All are welcome in this place. That is definitely a distraction.
This is why I prefer the low Mass. That's one of the reasons. Plus, having small children, the Mass getting done quicker does help when you've got small children who
I'm sure
haven't learned about piety, figured out piety at proper behavior at the Mass.
Oh, there's kids at our 9 a.m. High Mass who quite loudly and enthusiastically yell out some of the responses. At least I think that's what they're yelling. It vaguely sounds like it. And that's always fun.
Jeff Burrier, good morning. You know, it's funny you bring up the kids at Trad Mass because that's one of the big things that's so different between Novus Ordo and traditional Latin Mass communities. At the Novus Ordo, like a child, like, psst, and parents are gone. The kids grabbed, they're out the back door.
Oh, Joe, we lost you. We lost your audio. What happened? We lost your audio. Did you disconnect?
Well, that happens at my parish too, though.
Let me check your Comrex, Joe.
Am I really?
Oh, you're back. You're back. There we go.
Back.
I don't know what happened.
No,
it's AT&T.
At my parish, we were asked to leave the to actually go into the parents' room with our son when he was being loud during the Mass. And this is at a traditional parish.
Yeah.
So this happens
really?
too.
I've encountered or heard of encounters with grouches at TLMs too.
I have not.
Like somebody complained to us about the priest. Yeah.
I will have to experience this, I guess, for the first time sometime soon, because at our parish, like we had this family in front of us one time, maybe a year or so ago. They're like, we're so sorry about our child during Mass. We know how distracting that is. I said, it's okay. It's all good. We all understand. I mean, practically at this parish, the kid would have to bludgeon you to death before anybody would actually complain about it. So, I mean, it's just the kids are a little, they're a little loud at Mass. And, you know, it's just part of the experience. They're there. And on occasion, Father will remind the community of the cry room. But
we take our kid, we park ourselves in the what they call the dad's room, which has got a TV for the Mass, and the kids can do their thing in there because people in our parish are apparently very sensitive to this. So
wow, no kidding. Not at our parish. It's the opposite. I would almost say it's probably not sensitive enough. There's probably a little bit more balance that could be had in that. But nonetheless, I find it very fascinating because all of the Novus Ordo suburban parishes we belong to in this diocese, they've all been the total polar opposite. And parents feel so, intimidated. They'll get the looks, and then the slightest whimper of a brand new baby, and they get up and they leave. I'm like, it's an infant, for crying out loud. You can barely hear it. Like, it's fine to stay where you're at. But it's totally the opposite where we are. So what was this? What was that cartoon? Damon, you put the meme in the chat, but I forget the name of that. The whole big robot craze.
Oh, is that Gundam?
I don't. Japanese.
It's probably anime.
Was
it? What's the robot?
It was like 80s.
Is that Gundam?
80s cartoons from Japan.
I feel like maybe it's not Gundam. What's
You're thinking anime. Although Transformers was anime.
Yeah. Voltron. He says
Voltron. Voltron's the other one. Voltron. Yeah.
Okay. See, I never watched Voltron when I was a kid. I think I had a toy I got secondhand or something. But Voltron was never really my thing.
Smurfs, raise your hand. Raise your hand if you were on Team Smurf. Smurf? Who did Smurfs?
Team Smurf?
Yeah.
Sort of.
Is anyone on Team Smurf?
Are you kidding? How many people watched the remake of it? I'm not raising my hand.
Watching it, but is anyone really on Team Smurf?
Of course. Back in those days, I certainly was. Team Smurf.
You get a Smurf tattoo.
I always thought it was weird there was only one female, the whole bunch, though.
Well, they're like a.
That's because you were thinking about it too logically, wondering how the community works that way.
Yeah.
Whereas for kids, you're not supposed to think about this.
Bad for her.
I have to remind my own wife to not overanalyze the plot of children's shows too much.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right. Master Baker 78. Good morning to you. Go bots, he says. Smurfs or witchcraft. You're right. I get it now. Hindsight being 2020, Patricia. But back in those days, I was a pagan. So what are you going to do? Which reminds me of this story out of Rome, which is really, really disturbing. So disturbing. Like evidence.
Which story out of Rome this time?
Yeah. I'm sure there's some good stories there. We just haven't found them. That's part of the problem is I can't find them. I'd love to share them, but it's hard to find them. Pokemon, never a Pokemon fan, Margaret. I'm sorry. I could never. I was too old for starters and just couldn't do it.
I missed the boat on that one too.
And watching all of those zombies with their phones, like, can you not see yourselves, people? Like, oh, it was so bizarre. Downtown Houston, hordes of people walking around with their phones trying to play that game. Fraggle Rock?
Fraggle Rock.
Yeah, I watched Fraggle Rock when I was a kid. I got no shame.
No shame.
That was Jim Henson, right? Fraggle Rock.
And although I was older at the time, I was already 20 something at the time. Who remembers the shoot 'em up guy who voiced Thomas the Train? What's his name? Alec Baldwin. Remember those days? You remember Alec Baldwin's Thomas the Train era? Boy, I remember
my son used to watch Thomas the Tank Engine a lot.
Was it?
And I was a little surprised when we would turn it on, and all of a sudden it was Alec Baldwin. It went from George Carlin reading those to Alec
I
Baldwin.
remember the George Carlin era. Yeah. I mean, George Carlin.
Now, if you watch it on streaming,
it's Ringo
Starr. If you watched it on
streaming,
it's Ringo Starr. If you watch it on streaming, you can find Ringo Starr.
Ringo Starr.
I would rather have George Carlin in a way than Ringo Starr.
Over in
honestly.
England, it was in the UK, it was Ringo Starr narrating the Thomas the Tank Engine.
Yeah. Woo. Someone brought up the Muppet Show. I loved the Muppet Show when I was a kid. I couldn't wait every week for the Muppet Show to come out. It was based, as the kids say today, no cap. It was great. Kelly,
really attracting our Gen Z listeners, Joe. I think they're not awake right now, but still.
I'm going through how to talk like the kiddos.
Yes.
I had to for the first time in my life
demographics.
For the first time in my life, when I heard new slang, I had to look up its meaning online. It was when I had to figure out what the heck bussin' meant no cap. I figured out what mid meant. Mid's pretty obvious. What mid means is pretty obvious. Yeah. But the rest, I had to go look that up. That's when I realized that was just the latest sign in that I was old.
I think
it was also when I heard like contemporary pop music. And for the first time, I heard like a top 40 hit, and I couldn't understand why it was popular.
Yeah.
Even if I didn't like it, I've always been able to get why somebody liked something. But now, these days, I'm like, this isn't even good. Like, there's nothing redeeming in this.
I think our audience would agree that this show is bussin'. No cap.
This show is So yesterday we decided we were going to produce an entire show of rap. We were going to do spoken word, a combo of spoken word and actual rap.
Joe decided.
It was decided. Okay.
It was decided. There we go. Yeah, let's pass
decided.
the
voice. Is this your Beyonce moment, breaking into a new genre? Like, she's now doing country music, so you're going to go to hip hop?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I would say it's the other way around. It's country doing hip hop, right? So, we're going to do I used to be a big fan of country music. I guess those days are gone now, but we decided we'd do an entire show without smiling, without cracking a smile, without laughing. An entire hour, nothing but rap. All news articles, spoken word, and rap the whole time. We'll see. But maybe, just maybe, we should do like the language of the kids, an entire show. I'm going to need you to write that, Jake. The entire hour.
Me to write it. Okay.
Well, you are of that clan, are you not? I mean, you are.
Yeah, I'm a late term
millennial.
Please
be very. Please, if you're going to ever do something like that, go to Urban Dictionary first and make sure what you're saying is fine.
Joe, I already know. Joe is the one who'll have to double check my usage here.
Oh man, yikes!
And you'll get a fake face tattoo or something, and a fake face person.
That's what I was gonna do. I was gonna get fake tattoos.
There's gonna be some really painful rhymes if you try and make me do that.
Which reminds me,
can it be any more painful than Can it be more painful than Ben Shapiro's rap? Like, people are like, "Oh, he's got flow." I'm like, "No, not really."
I'm not playing that again, Joe. We got copyright struck the last time I did.
Yeah, we did. We played only audio at that. You never even put the video on. Like, totally squandered the opportunity, and we still had our hands slapped by YouTube.
Exactly. Yeah.
For playing 7
which is weird because now did they block the video? I don't think they did because so many reaction channels reacted to it.
They blocked. Which
you have to challenge that.
Well, every time I challenge, what I hate about this, going back to the insider baseball of YouTube, this is what I dislike about the whole copyright or strike challenge process. It's a totally rigged system. Copyright.
It's totally rigged and it's vague. Everything about YouTube is vague. Everything.
Exactly. We played 7 seconds of Shapiro doing his thing. No video, just the audio. And we even said that this was going to be like a reaction. We said all of that, and we talked over it and everything. And still, they slapped our hand. Now, I got a channel warning because when Sound of Freedom came out, there was a certain conspiracy theory attached to it, and I did a whole show, and I talked about the Rolling Stones article, and they you perpetuated the conspiracy theory, and I'm like, are you kidding? I tore it apart. I hate that conspiracy theory. I don't subscribe to it. The video actually
is that the conspiracy theory about Chrome involving adrenaline? Or
no,
what?
It was Letter of the Alphabet Anonymous.
Yeah.
Oh, that one.
Yes.
Oh, I usually on YouTube refer to that as R-1 because you can't even say I'm going to queue up now.
I mean, if you watch that video, which you can't now because they deleted it, but if you watch that video, I was totally debunking. I'm like, this information is true. It's not a conspiracy theory. This conspiracy theories are crazy. So when they said you can either take a community guidelines sensitivity class, or you can dispute the warning. I'm like, well, I'm not taking the class, so I disputed the warning. But in the dispute process, they don't allow you to state your case. So
this is one of those things that
for me to make my case. So you can only click a button. That's it. It's all you can do is okay, fine. We'll review it again. Don't worry. Oh, guess what? We're right. You're wrong. It's blocked. And from now on, your warning is permanent forever, and you could get channel strikes from here on out.
My hope is that in the future, because it looks like this fall the Republicans are going to capture everything. If we're allowed, if everything goes the way we are told that things go, the only thing you can hope that they could do to social media would be to require transparency and clear, like, you broke this rule and here's where you broke it. Here's the rule, as part of due process. That's the only thing you can hope they do, including making up, cleaning up appeals and how they work and everything. Because there was a channel that I watch for following the culture war kind of stuff. where they go in and talk about leaks from what's going on in Walt Disney, what's going on in that company, and the evils they're doing in the culture. And they woke up Monday morning to being demonetized. Even though the guy there, I'm certain the guy who hosts that channel that I'm talking about is a Catholic, because sometimes he'll refer to things and he'll always use Catholic examples to help explain things, like how Walt Disney World was basically Vatican City in Florida, right? And
good times,
right? Yeah, and the guy was demonetized for no reason, and YouTube did remonetize him after basically a social media firestorm broke out on Twitter over it. But it took pressure because he posted the letter he got from YouTube, and it was just vague nonsense.
Wow. Michael says, I had my channel locked. I had children praying the rosary, told I was spreading hate speech. Yeah, good times. My previous employer, on my previous radio show, I was getting channel strikes left and right. We were being put into timeout all the time, it seemed. So, and it was usually over the pandemic stuff. We were never allowed to talk about that.
Well, they've become nice and moderate from what I hear. Nice and safe.
Yeah. I'm sure they have. So it is a rigged system, but it's interesting. I had a conversation with my friend Rudy Carlos the other day about this, and the AI craze that we're in now, that's only going to get worse. AI, I saw you talking about this with Hitchborn last night. AI used at the IRS to track your finances, your bank records. AI used by the FBI to track bank records for January 6th. I reported on that earlier today. So AI is being a tool used in the toolbox of those that would censor all day long, no problem. And so, all right, fair enough. But my argument is, yes, I know this. I understand this. I know that these platforms are rigged. But at the same time, I believe that we should leverage these as Catholic evangelists for as long as we can until they kick us off. That's what St. Max Colbert did. St. Max Colbert had a printing press. He had an airplane. He distributed, his work in multiple languages all across Europe and in Japan. He tried to expand his operations to India. He was happy to use radio, print, speech, pamphlets, whatever the means necessary, passing out miraculous medals on trains to Nazis. He had Nazis, SS guards on his property in Poland before they arrested him and sent him off to prison. By the way, he had already been to one concentration camp well before he had got sent to Auschwitz. He was arrested and released right after the invasion in Poland, and he got to go back to Neil Pokolonov. So just like Kolbe would leverage all of these things for the glory of God and for the salvation of souls, so should we until they kick us off. So and then the point being, we need an alternative distribution model that allows us to keep going after. That's what Kolbe did. He recruited when they canceled him from the Paperboy system. They had all these kiosks and Paperboys set up, but the locals thought he was competition, so they cut him off. They wouldn't allow him to have distribution. He simply built his own kiosks and recruited his own Paperboys and did his own thing. Like, that's what we have to do. We need to be on YouTube for as long as we can, and then when they kick us off, we're going to have to get creative and do crafty other things. And if the other team can use AI to their advantage, then we ought to create our own versions that we can use to our advantage for as long as we can for the glory of God and for the salvation of souls. That's my thoughts. What are your thoughts, Dr. Stein?
I think any technological tool that is available to us, we should be using. Because any technological tool is just a tool. It's how you use it that the morality comes in. I'm not a fan of AI sacred art because it's a contradiction in terms.
Yes.
Sacred art is sacred, at least because it's a human being connecting to God, and you don't do that with keystrokes typically, not in that way. But any tool available we should be using. And I think of any platform available that people are on, we should be using. I mirror my videos on Rumble, even though there's almost nobody there watching Catholic content.
Yeah, me too. I don't even bother, to be honest. We do live stream there. We're there right now. That's very instant, but we don't upload anything to there.
Yeah.
It's not worth the extra time it takes to manage that process. It's a complete wasteland. Rumble is. Except for those in the chat. Let me just be clear.
Yeah, the chat has gotten. Well, the chat. That was my point. The chat has gotten busier in recent months.
Yeah, And we are grateful that, but that's why we're still live streaming there, because there is a community that's growing there. So we are going to stay on the live stream. But as far as the uploads
I haven't
go,
even figured out how to live stream though.
Too much work.
Oh, really? Well, we'll help you do that. Maybe we can talk about that offline. We'll help get you up to speed on Rumble pretty quick. We have what was the cartoon? We have the expertise. We have the knowledge.
That's $6 million, man. We can rebuild them. We have the technology.
Or maybe I'm thinking of Bob the Builder. Can we do it? Yes, we can. I don't know. You know what technology I would love to see? Is this just between us? I don't want anybody to really hear me say this out loud.
It's just us.
This is super sneaky stuff. Okay, I don't want my Xi Jinping overlord advisor to hear me say this. But you know how in Shanghai 2 years ago, maybe it was about 2 years ago, they were protesting, and they were sharing information amongst the protesters. And then Xi called his buddy over in Silicon Valley at Apple and said, "Hey, man, can you cut them off, bro? I mean, we need you to be a team player here and cut them off." And Apple was like, "Yeah, Tim Cook's like, sure, I can do that, no problem. Here, I got an app. They're done." So, and it's fascinating. So this is the technology that they were using on Apple devices, and it also exists on Android. They learned, because every Apple device has this built in, whether you want it to or not. You can't even turn it off. You walk into a room with other devices, it's automatically starting to talk to all the other devices in the room. There's no way to turn this off. It does it without your permission. These people know that. They learn to leverage that so they could walk into a room and they could send information over that network to everybody else in the room. It was super awesome until Tim Cook turned it off from headquarters. And Xi got his way and was able to suppress these people. Now, I would love to see yesterday we're talking about if we had $1 billion. If I was not Carl Schwab, but Soros, if I had Soros kind of money, I would most certainly leverage this technology. Where are the Catholic programmers, the Catholic developers who have the expertise, because I don't, to leverage this technology so that we could, as Catholic evangelists, walk into the Super Bowl, hit send on our phone, and every phone in the building gets a message from us. Exhorting them to
there's some of the early work for that already done. There's that Catholic alternative social media website, SP3RN.
Yeah, I've been on it. I've been on it in the past. I've not been there in a long time, but
I haven't been there in a while. There's also at least 2 attempts at a Catholic video hosting platform.
No, I know, but that's not what I'm referring to. These are like sending text messages.
But there are people who have these skills to do it, and they're behind those websites.
I know. I've talked to both of those.
App design isn't even that hard. Well, maybe you should have a conversation with them then and say, "Hey, look, how hard would it be to make this kind of an app?"
Well, I kind of have.
I know that it's expensive, but I'm not against having an ad on the corner of a screen somewhere to pay for the cost, somebody can recoup the cost and then the maintenance cost of an app. As long as it's not trying to sell me Viagra or something.
Well, this is my point: is there are very wealthy Catholics who would rather make sure that they have a legacy left behind with their name on the school building or the local Catholic Charities office or something like that. They want to be besties with the bishop downtown. But if you really want to take your money and have a great impact, invest your hard-earned resources into organizations that are moving the bloody needle. They're actually trying to convert people, bring them closer to the faith, and organizations like ours, the work of Dr. Stine and many others. We're not alone. Okay, there's a bunch. I'm not even trying to make myself out to be bigger than we are. We're not. But my point is, it is so hard to get folks of capacity to invest in organizations like ours and do these kinds of things. And if I had that kind of money, I most certainly I would have a guy on my staff whose job it is to be this kind of sneaky, to get me access to this technology, just like the Chinese did in Shanghai and were shut down. And then I would send out a team. I would have these people all over the world who would have an event selected on the same day, hopefully around the same time, like has the most amount of people present, and they would all walk into those events, just like Al-Qaeda does when they go around shooting up places and bombing places. Like, let's leverage that for evangelization in the opposite sense, in the sense of not harming people, but doing good for people, walking into a arena, and then everybody at the same time hit and send, and then pow, hundreds of thousands of people get a message of evangelization all at the same time. And then we get shut down, but we at least did it once, like one big, huge, massive splash. Could you imagine? That'd be an amazing thing to do. But literally, there are no people of capacity out there who are willing to put their money behind projects like that, which means we have to go and ask for advertisers or sponsors or things like that. Patreons. The power of the widow's mite is the only reason why anything can happen anymore. And I'm not faulting it. I'm just saying it's like that's the challenge we have in the media biz for Catholic evangelization. It's hard. And there is a lot left on the table. And I guarantee it's not the same for the other side of that coin, right? The actors that will be on Team Antichrist, they are going to leverage this all day long, and they're going to have all the resources they need to do what they need to do. By the way, Divine Intervention Ontario is back. Good morning to you. Glad you're here. Praise be to God. Mac asks, is there a traditional Catholic app on the same level of popularity as Hallow yet? No. But I will say that we are in discussions with a developer here at the Station of the Cross, and this was definitely a part of that conversation. This is going to be a major investment for our apostolate if we can pull it off. To have an app that for our apostolate, for our media apostolate, so radio, video, podcasting, etc., but that is intuitive, is beautiful, is elegant, as say like the Hallow is, but only more Orthodox and faithful Catholic. So think of it this way: imagine if Chosen were actually Catholic.
There's another hornet's nest you could stir up. People get weirdly defensive of that show. Weirdly defensive.
Yes, they have. I got in trouble several months back for criticizing The Chosen. The Chosen people themselves criticized me back. It was fun.
I mean, I guess they want to defend their buddy Jesus, because that's they remind me of that awful movie Dogma. That's what it reminds me of. The only good thing in Dogma was George Carlin playing a really just reprehensible bishop, because he nailed it. He nailed like the worst of the bishops in that movie. Yeah, if you're not familiar with that movie, you don't need to know the general plot line because it's awful. But there is one part where this George Carlin's archbishop decides he's going to launch this Catholicism Wow campaign, which sounds like something right out of the Synod.
Yeah.
And he has this statue of Jesus doing this sort of buddy Jesus thing, and he takes your friend Jesus stuff to the logical conclusion of it, and it's just absurd.
Yeah.
And that's what Chosen reminds me of.
Exactly. Yeah. And let's not forget our buddy who is just at the Vatican hanging out with His Holiness Pope Francis, the famous director there, Hollywood director, who's about to make another movie about the life of Jesus. Let's never forget his first movie on. Didn't he make the Last Temptation of Christ?
Yes,
Wasn't
he did.
That him, or was that somebody? Was that
That was him.
Yeah, that was blasphemy.
Silence.
It was heresy.
Yeah. Silence, which promotes apostasy.
He made silence, which justifies apostasy.
Yeah. I wonder if he's going to get an apostolic visit. Oh, he had one with the Pope, and the Pope never pushed back. Yeah, that's great. Cardinal Zen, though, definitely should not get an audience. Absolutely. Bishop Strickland certainly should be fired. Cardinal Mueller's out to pasture, and so is the bishop down in Argentina, which you covered today, Dr. Stine. We're gonna link to those videos in the show notes, but we're out of time. Dr. Stine, God bless you. God love you. Appreciate you being on the show again today. Having a good time in the back end.
God bless, and thanks for having me on again.
We'll see you guys on Monday. Don't go anywhere. More of A Catholic Take will be here Monday morning bright and early with Xavier. We'll see you there.